his office.
I knew that she initially thought she would be able to do it.
Yeah.
I told her, I was like, look, if you don't feel comfortable, pass it on.
Yeah. Well, his
I got you
office,
live, Judge Fleener.
he told us he's going to
Okay. All right. I'll call this meeting to order. Thank everyone for attending this morning. First off is roll call. Melissa Cardwell.
Here.
Judge Tim Coleman.
Here.
Colton Givens.
Here.
Kevin Phelps.
Here.
And Judge Greg Benson.
Here.
All right. Next item is approval of our regular scheduled call meeting minutes from 1/18/2023. I think everyone got sent a copy of those. If there's no additions or corrections to them, enter into a motion to accept them as presented.
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
Motion by Kevin. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Tim Coleman. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it know by saying aye. All opposed, motion carries. Architect update. Do we have someone with an update this morning, Mark?
Yeah, Chris is he just unmuted.
Okay.
I'm here. Preliminary, we're in, preliminary stages. Where are we on the survey? That was my question that came to me.
As far as I know, it's completed, Chris. Dan didn't, well, I know we got an invoice for the survey work from QK4.
Okay, good. All right. We're in the early planning stages, and now that we have a site.
Chris, do you all have a contact with QK4 that you're working with?
I will find out from Jeff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they should be sending, all that information to you all directly. So.
All right. I'll double check on that.
Yeah. So Dan, did you talk to Jeff? I believe that work's completed.
It is. We have
Yeah.
copies of the survey.
Okay, great. All right. So we're in the, first phase A, preliminary design, and I will update you at the next meeting where we are. That's all I have right now.
Thank you, Chris. Our next item is our land acquisition.
Pardon?
The land acquisition.
Judge Vogel or Judge Coleman, I'm on the wrong project. Do you have any update on where we are on the paperwork side of all that?
Yeah, it's moving forward. I'd been in contact with Ms. Duval. She decided that she probably wasn't set up yet enough to do the closing. So
Okay.
It's been referred to Samantha Short's office. We've got all the deed work done now. Since we had transferred things over, I'm having the surveyor amend the plat that we had prepared to get the new information on that. We found out there was one number that was off on one of the deeds. So we filed a deed of correction Monday. So we should have that amended plat here pretty quick, and we'll be ready to close.
Okay. One thing, I did some checking with the people that did the phase 1 environmental site assessment and whatnot. So there's some time duration milestones in the approval letter. So we went back through all that, and I ended up calling Doug Lineback yesterday afternoon to they had so many dates in there, I couldn't figure out what was what, but what he basically told me is there's a time duration from when they make their first site visit. And then I think that ended up coming due in January 1st. He said, basically, before we close, we need to update our phase one, before we close on the property. And we, of course, it was, I believe, back this summer when we had everybody or had them come out and make their first assessment when they looked at everything. So he said, really, we want to make sure we're closed by then. And then, if we're closing soon, make sure we have the updated environmental assessment updated before we close. And so that's some additional paperwork we're going to have them handle for us. So we think I'll try to get that taken care of.
Judge Coleman, and you may have said this, I'm not sure, but do we have an anticipated date of when we can schedule a closing on that, or is that?
Well, Chris just found out about it last week, so we hadn't. Chris is the guy that does the deeds with Short and Miller.
Okay.
But I think we should be fairly quick. I think I don't know of any impediments at this time to try to do it. So hopefully within the next week.
Just to be able to convey that to the phase one environmentalist that, this is the date we need to shoot for to have that updated information. So
How long does it take to do the final environmental?
How long will it take to do this final update on the environmental assessment?
I can find out. I don't know. I think it's just a paperwork. I can find out. Like I said, I spoke to Doug yesterday, and he just, he basically said, you don't want to close on a property and not have it updated, that would cause us problems. I don't know the specifics of that. So, if we think that we're going to close in 30 or 45 days or something like that, possibly, I can go ahead and get that taken care of now.
Yeah,
I don't see any reason why we won't close that, or we won't be able to close that quick. So
Okay, then I'll give him a call back today, and I'm not sure what the cost is for them to update, or if it's just I don't know the specifics of that, but I'll figure that out too as well.
I can't see any reason. This is Greg Benson. I can't see any reason why we couldn't have the closing and environmental, all of that wrapped up and done by the next time we get together in a meeting. I would think everything.
I would think so.
Closing won't take long at all.
Okay. So so y'all think y'all have it closed before we have the next meeting?
Should.
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll work on getting it updated, and I'll send out an email on how long this is going to take, and
yeah,
if there's
because
anything else.
they might need to do another site visit, Mark, just to verify, conditions haven't changed or.
Yeah, the
something like
letter.
that.
Yeah, I'll find out, Danny, but the letter basically refers to like their first site reconnaissance is what they call it in the letter.
Yeah.
And so they basically say a period of 180 days past that site reconnaissance, which if that was in June or July, so the expiration date was on the second page, and it showed January 3rd in the letter. So, but there was several different dates in there. So that's why I had to kind of figure out what exactly all that meant. But he said, basically, we just need to update the phase one environmental. He said, because generally speaking, he says, I believe he told me that those are only good for a year in general, and then you'd have to do a new one. So I guess it's a time frame issue on the information.
All right. Let me ask another question, if you guys don't mind. I am the new guy here, but I think I was told to be on here just to cause problems. So, what between today's meeting and the next meeting, we have the closing that should happen. This environmental should happen. Is there anything else that this board or the people locally that we need to do to make this closing happen and the transfer be fully done by the next meeting?
I don't think so.
No.
We've got funds available to, go ahead and make that closing, put into the account or escrow account for a closing. So.
Yeah. So one thing that'll need to happen, I guess, is if once we know what we think the closing cost is, if we're going to use a closing attorney, we'll have to get the funds into their escrow account. So we can either, the quickest way would be to wire the funds if they have wiring instructions, and we can basically get the amount. We'll approve the amount by executive committee, and then we'll send the wiring instructions to our bank trustee, and then they'll get the money put in the escrow account of the closing attorney. So that way we'll have the money ready for closing.
Who is responsible for making sure that happens?
Well, if once we get the closing amount, they're basically, if y'all can get the numbers, if we can get the numbers to me, I'll have an executive committee. It's basically me, Judge Fleener, and Melissa. We're on the executive committee. We can approve the amount, and if we can get the wiring instructions from the closing attorney for their escrow account, then I'll have basically our budget person up here at AOC. They send all the payment correspondence to our bank trustee. He'll send that information on to them, and then they'll do the wire.
So
what will happen.
So locally, we need to get that information, the closing cost information, to you post haste.
Yeah.
And who is responsible? Who in this group is going to be responsible for getting that to you? That's what I want to know. Who I can look at and point nasty fingers at if something goes wrong.
So do we have the Colton? Do we have the option agreement finalized? Because for all that, are we still waiting on the language to be able to put into that?
I think when I had prepared a draft of the option agreement last year, I don't know that the entity had been formed that had put all the land was going to be put into. So I think there's still a little bit of work to be done on that front. Let me see if I can find the draft I had. And
I think we might have went ahead and put in the new information, and Tim, Mark may have dropped that off with you. Do you know if you got that?
Say that again, Judge Coleman.
I was thinking that we had gone ahead and signed a option agreement that should have been dropped off. I don't know. I thought we had to get the finalized entity information and whatnot in order to be able to do the option. And that's what I know you're all consolidating some stuff. Yeah.
And I assumed we had to get that done and finished before we could do the option. Does that sound right, Colton? Or I'm imagining that.
I'm pulling up the draft of the option agreement that I had from last year. And let's see. The entity I had down was Coleman Land Management. Is that right, Judge?
That's correct.
Okay.
Do we know if that's been executed or not? That's something I don't know.
I do not have an executed copy of it, but it would be between Butler County Properties Corp. And Coleman Land Management. So I wouldn't necessarily be the one to have a copy of it.
Okay.
I thought we had executed recently. I'm not talking about a long time ago. I'm talking about around the December or that, and dropped it off, but we can get that done again. That's no problem.
Okay.
Just
all right. So we need to make sure.
I do have a copy of that option on that. You're talking about the option on purchasing the strip mall there? Yes. I've got Mark did bring me a copy of that.
Okay. Okay, so we got that taken care of then.
Well, go ahead and if you could get a copy of that to Colton, let him look over it and make sure we've got everything on that. But yeah, I thought we'd drop some off.
Okay.
Sometime.
Okay. All right.
And Mark, once you're closed, we can start design in earnest, if I'm correct.
Yes. Yep.
All right.
Yep. Yeah, we get the property closed, we can get the show on the road. Y'all can do your thing, and
Great.
we'll be able to roll on with it. So.
And so do you have, I missed this, did you have an actual date when you're expecting that to closing?
We're hoping next 30 days, Jeff.
Sometime
next
within the
meeting.
next, okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, there's a few D things that they had to get fixed. I think, right, Judge Coleman, on
Yes.
there was something up on something. So they're amending some, I believe, amending the deed to make a correction or something.
Yeah, we've got that taken care of. We're just really waiting on the surveyor to amend that plat that we had prepared, so we can get that filed and be ready to go with that.
Okay. Yeah, once he gets that done, Jeff, then they're going to set up a closing date. They're going to use the county attorney's not going to do the closing, so we're going to use a closing attorney. So we just got to get the escrow information from the closing attorney and able to transfer the funding. So what's kind of come up. So
Samantha, and send her to your office today. But she will be in my court. If I need to say, hey, you can't leave this courtroom, you go down there. The judge.
is there anything else, Danny, that you can think of that we need to take into account?
I don't think so at this time. I mean, the priority is the closing for sure. And then we'll, work on all of the phase one update.
Okay. I think that's it. We can go on to the next one, Judge Flingers, if you want.
Sorry, Mark, what was that?
If I think we can go on to, we have one invoice for the surveyor.
Okay. We're done with the land acquisition. Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
All right, our next is disbursement request for number 5 from an amount of $11,450 to survey third party part utility locate. Do I have a motion that we pay this?
I move we pay the surveying off on that issue.
Motion by Kevin, do I hear a second? Second by Greg. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor of the motion, let it know by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business at this time to bring before the board?
Just one thing I'm thinking in advance of, getting prepared to meet with everybody is what we normally do. And I'll go ahead and do this soon so that the affected parties can have a chance to kind of look it over. We have kind of a basic package of information that we normally send out in advance of having initial meetings with the users about function. So, we don't get into the design specifically at first. The idea is to make sure that we understand what everybody is looking for as far as functionality in the building. Of course, the basis of that is the program that the AOC provides. And normally that's the initial assumption is that's what we're going to do. So what we do though is we'll come down specifically just to kind of focus it on those that are actually using the building is to meet with the judges and the clerk about their specific spaces and compare it to the program that the AOC provides and make sure everybody's on the same page. And then we'll, on that information, then we would be ready to start actually working on a design. So in advance of that, before we, have the property closed and all, I'll go ahead and send that information to everybody. So they'll have plenty of time to kind of look it over and really all of the information I send beyond the program that you already have is just information, say from previous jobs, the questions that were asked so that you can kind of get your mind in gear the sort of things you need to think about as the user to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we'll get that out to you soon. And that way, when we're authorized to begin, we'll be ready to set up the meeting and you will have had some time to look over that information.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else at this time? If not, then we need to set a date for our next meeting. It looks like our next meeting date was supposed to fall on the 15th of March. With February being a short week or short month, I'm sorry, would it be all right to push it out another week to make sure that we get all this, the land acquisition and the deeds and everything finalized?
I'm open.
Okay.
Archer Avenue on the 14th and the 16th, there is that meeting.
On the 22nd is when it would be, Judge Fleener, I believe.
March 22nd then?
Is that, what about you, Judge Coleman? Is your schedule okay?
I'm good on that day, yes.
Colton, how are you looking?
I'm good that day as well.
Okay.
There you go, okay, then.
You'll have to send me a link because I won't be here that day. I'll be there, so I can do it from my office.
Okay. All right, is that good with everyone else? All right, so our next meeting date, March 22nd at 8 a.m. by Zoom again. Okay,
I'll send a link out for that date. I'll make sure we got a cohesive link when we send the agenda.
okay. Mark, do you have Judge Vincent's email?
You're on mute.
Sorry, Mark, you're on mute.
I was looking at the email list and I didn't see him on there, and Judge McCarty was still on there. I'll get that updated
Okay,
so that he's getting that. It's no problem.
all right. Okay, well, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
Motion, Greg, do I hear a second? Second by Melissa. All in favor, sign off, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you all.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Y'all too.